Intermittent fasting is exactly what the name would imply. It's fasting for periods of time beyond just the normal fast. So typically, one will go to bed and wake up in the morning and you eat breakfast, which, if you break breakfast down, it is breaking your fast. And the fast is just whatever time from the time you have your last meal, and then mostly just the time that you spend sleeping. And then you have breakfast, first thing in the morning, thereabouts. However, with intermittent fasting, that fast goes on for a longer period of time. In the literature, it's suggested to do a 2-to-5 ratio of eating to fasting for intermittent fasting. So essentially 2 hours of eating for every 5 hours of fasting. So that'll leave you somewhere in 6 to 10 hours a day of eating and 14 to 18 hours a day of fasting. So a good example of this is you eat dinner at 7 p.m. and then you wouldn't eat again until at least maybe 11 a.m. the following day, and then you would eat from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and then so on and so forth. The fitness industry tries to sell you on a lot of magic to intermittent fasting. They say that fasting boosts growth hormone and a lot of the factors and cofactors that help us with focus and energy, and that we actually feel more energized when we're fasting. To an extent, that is a little bit true. I mean, fasting does cause growth hormone to increase. Growth hormone obviously is great for building muscle, and we do tend to feel more alert when we fast because cortisol increases when we go through prolonged periods of fasting, and cortisol is related to our sort of fight or flight hormone systems. However, the degree to which those two specific ideas are affected as a result of fasting is negligible at best. Most studies have found that fasting doesn't really affect your hormone levels at all, and therefore all of the sort of claims from the fitness industry are bogus. However, I don't want to say that intermittent fasting is not helpful in some way. I think that intermittent fasting can be a great tool if it helps you adhere. For example, if you're dieting and let's say you have a very small amount of calories that you're able to consume in a day, it might be psychologically easier if you get to consume those calories in a larger portion. So literally just being able to fill your plate up more may help you psychologically, and as a result may help you adhere to your diet. So let's say you have 2,000 calories to eat throughout the day. Instead of spreading that out into 5 meals of 400 calories, which is barely anything, even for somebody pretty small, 400 calories is not a lot of food. But maybe if you do intermittent fasting and as a result you only eat 2 meals, and in those 2 meals you have 1,000 calories each. Well, now you're eating 2 huge meals, and psychologically that just might help you out a lot better. Physiologically, we're all different too. We have individual differences that we need to take into account. Some people just feel more full eating really big meals. So maybe they're just really slow to digest those meals, and when they eat a big meal, they feel full for a longer period of time. Whereas when they eat 400 calories, they can eat again in an hour. But if they eat 1,000-calorie meal, they're good for 4 or 5 hours. And if that's the case, then intermittent fasting might be better for you. However, I really believe in a more flexible approach, and just the fact that intermittent fasting quite literally restricts you into a time period that you're able to eat, I don't love it, because what happens if you don't get all your calories in and then you end up infringing upon the time that you're supposed to be fasting? What is that going to do to you psychologically? We know that it's not going to do much to you physiologically, but if you believe that, oh wow, like I've messed this up, is that going to affect you in the long term? And if you find yourself breaking your fast more and more often, is that going to provide you the benefit that it's meant to provide you? I would argue that it's probably not. However, when I'm dieting, I do typically follow an intermittent fasting approach. I usually just skip my breakfast, and it's not really on purpose. I'm not actually following IF necessarily. I more so just skip breakfast because it means that the 3 or 4 meals that I do get to have, I get to have much bigger. And I'm also just not hungry in the mornings. My best piece of advice for anybody dieting is to only eat when you're hungry. So if you're not hungry first thing in the mornings, maybe IF is a great thing for you. And if that's the case, then use it. Like most things, it's a tool, and if it's a tool that helps you adhere, use it. If it's a tool that doesn't personally help you, then set it aside or keep it in mind or completely throw it away. Whatever you have to do to help you adhere to a diet and be consistent with the diet is what's going to get you best results in the long run.